Hi, everyone. Today we're talking about something that could matter more than people realize, especially if you're retired, close to retirement, or just looking for a little more breathing room each month. A hobby, a skill, or something you have done for years may not just be something you're good at. It may actually be a small income opportunity. And here's the part many people miss. You do not always need a brand new career or some complicated online business to earn extra money. Sometimes the starting point is already sitting in your hands, your kitchen, your garage, your garden, your sewing basket, your old work experience, or even your memory. And this could help you look at your own skills in a very different way. Before we go further, I'm curious, what is one skill or hobby you have that other people have complimented you on? Let me know in the comments, even if you have never thought about making money from it. So, let's start with a simple truth. A lot of people hear the phrase side hustle, and they picture a young person making videos, selling digital products, driving for an app, or working from a laptop at a coffee shop. And sure, that exists, but that is not the whole picture. For older adults, one of the strongest opportunities may not come from chasing something new. It may come from using something familiar. Maybe you're good at baking. Maybe you know how to fix things around the house. Maybe you spent years working in an office and you understand paperwork, bookkeeping, or organization. Maybe you quilt, paint, garden, teach, play music, take photos, write, sew, cook, care for animals, or help people solve practical problems. And, sometimes people brush those things off because they come naturally. They say, oh, it's just something I do. But that just something may be exactly what someone else is willing to pay for. One example that shows this clearly is the story of Tricia Sue, a teacher and artist in Singapore. She started learning calligraphy when she was young, mostly from online tutorials. At first, it was a hobby. She made cards and small pieces for family and friends. But over time, that hobby became a real art business called Fully Scripted, where she sells prints, stickers, stationery, and custom lettering. It has been reported that her business brings in about $13,000 a year while she still works as a full-time teacher. Now, the point is not that everyone should become a calligrapher. And it is definitely not that every hobby will suddenly turn into thousands of dollars. The point is more practical than that. She did not start with some big company. She started with a skill, practiced it over time, tested what people liked, and slowly shaped it into something people would buy. And that is the part that matters for older adults. You may already have a skill. The question is, can that skill be turned into a clear offer? For example, a retired teacher may be able to tutor students, but that person still has to decide, am I helping children read better, helping high school students prepare for tests, or helping adults learn English? A gardener may know more than most people about growing tomatoes, herbs, or flowers, but the offer could be selling seedlings, teaching a small class, helping neighbors set up raised beds, or making simple garden plans. A woodworker might sell custom shelves, repair furniture, or teach beginners how to use basic tools. A former office worker might help people organize files, create resumes, proofread documents, or manage simple computer tasks. A person who loves baking might take small local orders, teach a holiday baking class, or sell at a community event if local rules allow it. So then, the skill is only the first piece. The next piece is understanding who needs it. And this is where people can get stuck, because being good at something is different from selling it. That does not mean you need to become a marketing expert, but it does mean you need to answer a few simple questions. Who would want this? What problem does it solve? How much time does it take me? What does it cost me? What would someone reasonably pay? And can I repeat this without wearing myself out? And that last question is very important because, especially in retirement, extra income should not destroy your peace. If the whole point is to add breathing room, purpose, or a little more comfort, then the work needs to fit your life. A hobby business can be flexible, but only if you design it that way. You do not have to take every order. You do not have to work every weekend. You do not have to say yes to every customer. You can start small. And honestly, starting small is probably the smartest way. Sell one item, teach one class, take one client, or help one neighbor. Try one local market. Offer one service for 1 month. Then look at what happened. Did you enjoy it? Did it make money after costs? Did it take more energy than expected? Did people ask for more? Did you feel proud? Or did you feel stressed? That small test can tell you more than weeks of thinking about it. Now, there's also a bigger trend happening here. Many younger people are becoming interested again in hands-on hobbies. Things like knitting, sewing, quilting, gardening, pottery, needlepoint, and other slower, more personal skills. Some people call these grandma hobbies, but honestly, that phrase almost undersells it. These are not useless old-fashioned hobbies. These are real skills and patience. They take practice and they take taste. They take years of little lessons that you do not always learn from a quick online clip. And guess what? That can actually give older adults an advantage. A younger person may see a beautiful quilt online and want to learn. But an older adult who has been quilting for 30 years knows the mistakes, the shortcuts, the fabric choices, the little tricks that make the final piece better. A young person may want to garden, but someone who has grown food for decades knows what actually survives heat, pests, bad soil, and forgetful watering. That experience has value. And this is something I really want to emphasize. Age does not erase your market value. In some cases, age increases it. The years you spent learning, working, fixing mistakes, raising a family, managing a home, running a classroom, working with customers, cooking for groups, handling money, or solving problems, those years count. But, and this is important, not every hobby should become a business. Sometimes a hobby is valuable because it is just yours. It relaxes you and gives you joy. It gives you a quiet place to think. And if turning it into income makes you resent it, then it may not be worth it. A hobby is a little like a garden. It can feed you, it can make your life more beautiful, or it can simply give you a reason to go outside and breathe. But if you decide to sell produce at a farmer's market, the garden changes. Now you have to think about timing, customers, packaging, pricing, and consistency. That does not mean you should not do it. It just means you should not turn the whole garden into a factory overnight. Start with a little stand at the edge of the garden. See if people stop by. See if you like it. See if the numbers make sense. Now let's talk about money for a moment, because this is where expectations matter. A hobby income stream does not have to replace a full-time salary to be useful. For many people, an extra $100, $200, or $500 a month can make a real difference. That could help with groceries, utilities, insurance, prescriptions, gift for grandchildren, a trip, home repairs, or just a little less pressure when prices keep going up. And if you're living on Social Security or a fixed income, even small extra income can feel meaningful. Not because it solves every problem, but because it gives you more options. But still, there are things to watch out for. First, do not underprice your time. Many people, especially people who are naturally generous, charge too little. They think, oh, it only took me a few hours. But your time matters. Your materials matter. Your experience matters. Second, keep track of costs. If you sell handmade items, you need to count supplies, shipping, fees, gas, market booth costs, and your time. If you tutor or consult, think about preparation time, phone calls, scheduling, and any tools you use. Third, be careful online. Flexible work can be wonderful, but scams are everywhere. Be suspicious of anyone asking you to pay up front for a guaranteed job, cash a check, buy gift cards, move money, or give personal information too quickly. Real opportunities should make sense. They should be clear, and they should not pressure you. Fourth, consider rules and taxes. If you're an income, you may need to report it. If you sell food, provide services in people's homes, or do repair work, there may be local rules, permits, or insurance concerns. That does not mean you should be scared away. It just means you should keep things clean and simple from the beginning. So what is a good first step? Well, one simple way is to write down 3 things. What I know how to do well, who might benefit from it, and what is the smallest version I could offer? Not the biggest version, not the dream version, the smallest version. If you bake, maybe it is one holiday cookie box for neighbors. If you garden, maybe it is one beginner class at a local community center. If you used to work in accounting, maybe it is helping one small business organize receipts. If you sew, maybe it is alteration for people nearby. If you play piano, maybe it is one weekly beginner lesson. And after that first test, pay attention to what people ask for. Sometimes the market tells you what the real business is. You may think you are selling handmade blankets, but people actually want a class on how to make them. You may think you are offering general tutoring, but parents keep asking for reading help. You may think you're selling garden plants, but people really want you to help them set up their backyard. And that feedback is gold. And also, do not underestimate local opportunities. The internet is powerful, yes, but not everything has to happen online. Churches, community centers, senior centers, libraries, farmers markets, neighborhood groups, local Facebook groups, and word of mouth can all help. Sometimes your first customer is not a stranger. It is someone who already knows you, trusts you, and has seen what you can do. And that trust is a big advantage. Older adults often have deep local networks. Friends, neighbors, former coworkers, family members, church members, club members, and community contacts. You may not think of that as a business asset, but it is. The bigger message is this. You do not have to become someone else to earn extra income. You may be able to begin with who you already are. Because sometimes the best opportunity is not a brand new idea. Sometimes it is an old skill seen with fresh eyes.